everybody. Welcome to this month's episode of the Female Film Critics Panel. And today I have with me film critic Alise Chaffins here. And thank you so much, Alise, for coming on the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, why don't you, since it's your first time on the show, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about how you got started writing about film and just your experience. Do you remember the first movie that you truly loved, that you excited you about film?
Oh gosh.
I know it's a lot.
Yeah. Like, I remember the first movie I went to see in the movie theater.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I went to see way back in the day. I went to see Pinocchio with mom and
Oh,
dad. Yeah, it was so I
uh-huh.
was little. I'm sure it was a re-release. I'm not quite
Yeah.
that old, but still. And I absolutely loved it. It was so neat. And
Yeah.
I don't know, pretty much as long as I can remember, I've just always enjoyed movies and going to the
Hmm.
movies and
Hmm.
like especially going to movie theaters. That's always
Hmm.
been something that I've loved.
Yeah.
Um, I came to writing about movies in a really weird roundabout way. I spent a lot of time writing on faith issues and stuff
Hmm.
like that. And then for a while, just kind of dropped out of writing for, oh, I don't know, maybe almost a decade.
Hmm.
And a couple years ago, it was as movie theaters were starting to open up again after the pandemic. I had the AMC A list, and my husband and I went to see everything. And when the movies were first coming back, they were all terrible. Um, but we went to see all of them anyway. I mean, just
Uh-huh.
everything, anything that came, we're going to the movies. And we were seeing something, and I tagged my local newspaper and said, "Hey, if you're ever looking for someone who goes to see all the movies and is a pretty good writer, I'm available." And
Smart.
and one of the editors from the newspaper messaged me on Facebook and said, "Hey, actually, we'd be happy to have somebody come in and
Oh my
do movie
gosh.
reviews." So it's just the most odd thing because I didn't
Hmm.
come from any kind of like entertainment writing background or anything like that. It's a thing I always enjoy, and I talk to
Hmm.
people about movies incessantly.
Yeah.
And people would be like, "Oh, you should write about them," and I was like, maybe, and didn't really think about it. And then yeah, and so I've been doing
Hmm.
that for a little over 2 years, writing for the Dominion Post here in Morgantown, West
Oh,
Virginia. So it's just been really fun. And earlier this year, I just was able to start working on um, my own personal like website where I kind of
hmm.
repost some of those and then just some other things too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's cool. For your full-time gig, do you write for a living or do you just,
no.
yeah, okay.
No, my main gig is a different freelance gig where I teach piano lessons. So I have lots of
Okay.
little
Okay.
moments here and there. I do music stuff and everything. My like degree was in music education, so
Okay.
that's where I kind of came up in music. So there's always been some element of like entertainment and stuff like that that I've enjoyed. But yeah, and just I've always liked writing. My dad was a
Hmm.
writing teacher and English teacher, and made me read all the things. But he'd have me write a lot of stuff too, and I've just always enjoyed
Yeah.
writing. So
I
yeah,
feel like you and I would get along well because that's kind of my philosophy of life. I sort of piecemeal it. I've got like a little
yeah,
bit here. I'm going to do some substitute teaching. I'm going to do some writing. I'm going to do some, and somehow, hopefully, it all
yeah,
manages together
yeah, somewhere.
to work. I mean, I would love to have like, of course, have a full time gig, but the piecemeal, it has its pluses. It has its
It does.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was interesting because during the pandemic, I thought it was going to be easier than it was,
Hmm.
because I thought, well, I work from home anyway. Like this is not going to be that hard, but it was hard to. I mean, especially losing theater and film was very difficult for me,
Yeah,
and but it wasn't as hard for me, even though it was harder than I thought it was going to be. It wasn't as hard for me as it was for some people,
right.
because I did have some experience at least being from home.
Yeah, yeah, it was
All
interesting
that.
here. Like doing piano lessons over Zoom and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was an
Mm-hmm.
interesting time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
When did you start playing piano?
Oh gosh, when I was little, when I was like
Yeah.
10 years old, I think is when I started playing. So I'm closing in on 50. So
Mm-hmm.
most of my life I've been
Did
playing
you
piano. So
did
yeah.
you want to play the piano? Did you talk to your parents, or did they kind of say, "We want you to do
No,
this," or
no, it was a you must play piano.
okay.
You're going to take piano lessons. And I was always a pretty good like faker. I could do
Uh-huh.
pretty well at just picking up music and more or less faking my way through it. And
Uh-huh.
eventually decided, oh, I'd like to become actually good at it and
Uh-huh.
everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know, Mrs. Durr in her, you know, her house in there, and I
Mm-hmm.
think my parents paid like $3 for half an hour lesson. So it was, yeah, way back in the day. But yeah,
Yeah.
it was fun. And yeah,
Yeah.
eventually went to school and decided to go ahead and, study music for real. And yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny that writing was just something that I kind of did just for fun. I enjoyed writing and
Mm-hmm.
never really thought about it in any kind of like significant way. And then just started writing a personal blog. Oh, and
Mm-hmm.
I went back when you wrote blogs, whenever that
Yeah.
was.
I know, I miss blogs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I had kind of the same thing. I was a blogger for about a decade, and then in 2014 I tore my MCL in my knee. And so I was like, well, I can't really move, and so I need some project, something, and I always try in life to turn a negative into a positive. That's always a goal of mine. And so I was thinking, what can I do when I'm just like sitting all this time healing my knee? And I had always wanted to watch the Disney canon and review
Mm,
the whole Disney canon. And so my original website, my original blog was 54 Disney reviews, because that was what it was at the time. There was 54 Disney films in the canon. It was right before Big Hero 6 came out. And so I thought, okay, I can do that. And it was like terrible SEO. Like everything I started, I had like a different name and and now it's all, pretty much all Rachel's reviews. But
right.
because I was, I'll start it for this reason or whatever. But I just started writing and I really enjoyed it. And it was very satisfying for me. So I started writing things beyond the canon, and then just kind of one thing led to another thing, to another thing, to another thing, to the podcasting, to the and it's I don't know, it's just interesting how if you keep yourself open to
Hmm.
the next to saying yes to the next opportunity, what can happen in life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Hmm.
I agree with that entirely. Because
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you said about the Pinocchio. Did you have other films that you would say were like foundation movies that were really influential for you growing up?
Yeah, so what I have two favorite genres, which are
Hmm.
rom-coms and horror
Hmm.
movies. Those are the
Okay.
two that I like. And I think they have some like elements of similarity
Oh
between
yeah.
them because
Hmm.
they're both very formulaic and they just have this way that they kind of go. And so they both have this comfort kind of
Yeah. Well, I
mechanism
joke
for me.
on Hallmarky's podcast. I often joke that you change the score in a rom com and could be a horror movie.
Yeah, it's true though. They're so close. And so these are the two that I love. And I don't know, I remember watching, I went to, I had just started at a new high school. I was a freshman in high school, and somebody took pity on me and invited me to this homecoming party, like after homecoming. And while we were there, somebody put on the original The Omen. And I was just captivated. It terrified me. I mean, I
Hmm.
couldn't sleep forever when the guy gets decapitated. It just like, ah! Um, but I
Yeah.
loved it. And I think that was probably one of the first horror movie, like true horror movies that I ever saw. And it just, oh, I wanted that forever. Like I'm
Hmm.
always chasing that kind of level of deep terror. And
Yeah.
the other movie that I really remember just loving every single thing about it was When Harry Met Sally. Like, I don't know if I
Mm-hmm.
will ever see a rom-com that I love as much as that movie. It is just perfect in almost every way to me. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, those are two that I think about if they're what kind of makes me love those types in particular. Those two are the ones that I just think about all the time because I mean, I'd seen other movies that I enjoyed before then, but I think the two of them were just like, oh, this is the kind of movie that I want to watch. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think all of us rom-com fans have our first Nora Ephron
Yeah,
crush, like the
exactly.
movie that we bonded with.
Yep, exactly.
Because she was so amazing. And I still don't think we have produced a rom-com writer on her level since she passed.
Yeah,
There a lot of
not in
people,
any kind of
yeah.
like with that number
A
of
lot of
just
people
so good.
put Nancy Myers on that level. No,
Mm,
no,
no.
thank you. She has a couple good ones, but not on, I mean, and Nora had some bad ones too.
Yeah.
Yeah, uh no, not on the
Yeah.
same level. But I do
Yeah.
love When Harry Met Sally. There's
Oh,
so many great scenes.
I don't know, it's just I get really excited. I just
Hmm.
everything about it. And, like, we're coming into fall here, and I'm like, oh, it's about
I
time
love
to
the fight over
stroll.
I love the fight over the wagon wheel table. I will never want that wagon wheel table.
It's just funny. I don't know. I always think, yeah, and I'm gonna be 40
Yeah, that was so good.
someday.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it's there.
They're just they're it's so great. It will probably, yeah, I don't know if I've seen some that I really really love. Like, I enjoyed Palm Springs. I love
Hmm.
Always Be My Maybe. Like, both of those
Hmm.
I really really like because they have some of those really smart kind of things in them. But oh
Yeah,
my gosh, yeah, there's nothing that quite holds a candle for me for When Harry Met Sally. It's
yeah,
just it's an all-timer.
yeah. I mean, of course, you've got the I'll have what she's having,
Yeah,
which is hilarious.
exactly. It's
It's
just moment after moment. I think
good
about all of
choice.
them.
Well, and there was so many years when we hardly got any romantic comedies.
Hmm.
And that's why, I mean, Hallmark was so brilliant, but a lot of us turned to Hallmark because that was really the only place you could get rom-coms.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I
Hmm.
think we're starting to see some coming
Yeah.
back, and I feel like there's been a pretty decent resurgence in like the past 5 years of some like pretty decent uh films coming out.
Yeah,
So
which I'm really grateful for, that we've
for
had like The
sure.
Lost City and we had
Hmm.
Ticket to Paradise and we just had Greek Wedding. We just had um there's some other ones this year. My mind has gone blank, but
Right.
but yeah, no, we've had some rom-coms this year, which makes me happy because I mean, you could even you look at this even sort of the success of Barbie, even though it's not a rom-com, but it was a movie made certainly with feminine energy and
Yeah.
for women, and to see it do so well has been
Yeah.
amazing to watch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's the thing is I love rom-coms, and you said it exactly, is that it has this just femininity about it
Hmm.
that I really love. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just I think it's fun, and I
Hmm.
enjoy it. And
Yeah.
I know that sometimes people will, yeah, poo-poo it because girl movies, but I don't know. I think that's it. When I sit there, I think about When Harry Met Sally, and I hate to keep going back to that one, but it
Yeah.
just feels like such a relatable movie to
Yeah.
anyone. And I think that's always what I'm looking for, just in any movie that I'm watching. I just want to
Hmm.
see, how do I relate to it? And
Hmm.
it's nice to not have to work as hard.
Are you a fan of Rachel's Reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for family movie night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/hallmarkies.
About the other day on Twitter that, you know, there's every year there's always these prestige movies that then go on and get completely forgotten by time, that nobody like remembers. They are, you know, just completely forgettable. And then you have these more populist, more formula films that last forever and that people
Mhm.
love. And
Right.
I was, the example I used in my tweet was something like the Churchill movie, finest, what was it, darkest finest
Mhm.
hours, darkest hour,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
darkest hours. um and you know, that came out the same year as Crazy Rich Asians. I mean,
Right.
does anybody remember? I can even remember the name.
The title,
It's just the most
exactly.
generic Oscar baity movie I can even think of, you
Yeah.
know. Whereas like Crazy Rich Asians, actually, like, people loved it, and it actually made a difference in like in diverse casting and in filmmaking. Like it, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just think that's interesting. Every year
Well,
there's
I
something
mean, when
like
I
that.
think like we wouldn't have like Everything Everywhere All at Once if we
Yeah.
didn't
No, we
have
wouldn't.
Crazy
Yeah.
Rich Asians. I
Right.
mean, Ke Huy Quan came back because of that film. Like
Yeah.
that, I mean, here's somebody, you know,
Right.
we had an Oscar winning performance last year because of a rom-com. And I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think
Sure.
that's, yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah,
we were talking about Red, White, and Royal Blue and
right,
how
right,
easy it
yeah,
is to dismiss a movie like that.
right,
And I just think, you know what, there's going to be a lot of prestige movies that will probably get nominated for Oscars and things like that that will go on to mean nothing. Whereas this little, you know, gay rom-com actually could change the world. Like, it
right,
sounds crazy, but it's true.
right.
It's people
Yeah,
seeing themselves fall in love, seeing characters they can relate to, seeing a romance that actually validates who they are and their choices. All of those things that actually can matter. Whereas your prestige biopic that nobody can connect with but looks nice,
right.
you know.
Yeah, right. And I think those they both have their place. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
yeah, I loved going to see Barbie. I loved going to see Oppenheimer. They were both real
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah,
But
that's
I'm
very
never
good.
going to watch Oppenheimer again.
Yep.
That's at the end of the day, I'm going to watch Barbie
Yeah.
way more than I'm ever going to watch Oppenheimer. And it's
Yeah.
not because Oppenheimer's a bad movie or anything like that. I
Right.
mean, it's just I don't
Yeah,
know. I guess if
that's
I go to a
true.
movie, I want to watch something that to
Yeah,
me
I've already watched Red, Bright, and Royal Blue literally 7 times. I love that movie so much.
Oh my gosh,
But there,
man, that
even
was
for someone like me, I even me, I sometimes think, can I say this is my favorite movie of the year? Like, it's just a silly wrong. I'm like, oh wait, you have to fight the genre bias. It's
right.
there. But
Yeah,
it's like,
it is.
no, this was the best. This is the thing that I liked the most.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's just it is I was just talking to somebody on Instagram about I my tendency in movies when I'm reviewing, I will almost always try to find something that I like about it because the
Mhm.
truth is that there are very few movies where I come into it and I just hate literally everything about it.
Yeah.
Almost everything has something in it that I think is worth like complimenting or whatever.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I guess maybe sometimes that rubs people the wrong way because yeah, I'm like too nice or whatever, but I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm here to find this stuff and I'll take down what I don't like. But yeah, so if you ever
Yeah.
see a
I
wholly
think
negative
that's the
review from
key.
me, it is, oh God, I really hated that movie.
Yeah. I think that's the key, is that, are you authentic? You
Right.
know? Because I mean, certainly for Hallmarkies podcast, we do try to be on the more positive side. In fact,
Yeah.
actually, tomorrow well, when this airs, that'll be a week or so. But we finally posted our worst Hallmark movies episode. People have been asking for years, and I was like, I don't want to be negative, and we finally did it. And I think we kept it like light and fun enough. And we say at the beginning, we're like, we haven't made anything. You made something. Like
Right.
you're already ahead of us. It's just, just this different opinions. But so I do try to stay as positive as possible. But I guess the only time it kind of gets me is when either I feel like people are like placating the studios, not giving their real, like opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Or they it's just like, everybody has something that it's like, come on, like be brave, like just don't
Yeah.
as long as I feel like they're being authentic, I'm totally cool with it. Like you can have whatever opinion you want. But when I feel like somebody's just shilling, then that's not the critic for me, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have reviewed a bunch of television on your site. There's so many shows these days.
There are too many.
Way too many. It's ridiculous. I swear, almost every day somebody tells me, "Oh, you gotta watch this show," and I'm like, "Oh, it's already got 4 seasons." I've never even heard of it before, and so it's hard. But you cover a lot of, it looks like BoJack Horseman. You did Ted Lasso. Like, how do you decide what shows to cover?
I pick the shows that I like, and that I think have something like deeper to say, like this. I found deeper meaning. So yeah, I wrote a fair bit about Ted Lasso. I'm currently working on a book called The Ted Lasso Relationship Guide, where I'm just talking about basically the way that Ted Lasso looks at different relationships, like friendships, romantic relationships, parenting, and then like coaching and mentoring, that kind of thing. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. In fact, I'm very close to finishing the first draft, so I'm really excited about that. But just, yeah, it's just that kind of thing. I'm writing about BoJack Horseman because I think it has it's one of the most well-written shows I've ever watched. It is dark, 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 but it is also really, really funny. And like, there are characters in it, like Diane Nguyen is just, oh gosh, if ever there's a character that I can look at and say, oh, watch everything she says and does, and that's who I am. That's like, she's just a character that like resonates with me so well. And just, so I just pick stuff that I like. I don't know. And that's it. I write about the stuff that like moves me. And yeah, Ted Lasso in particular just was this show that came in, and it's super corny, but it also just has so much heart to it. And I sat and watched it. My husband, who does not binge, he's anti-binging entirely, sat down and watched almost, I would say we probably watched the first season in 2 days, and he does not do that. And because he was just, oh my goodness, it was just so revelatory to watch a show that was just nice, I guess.
Well, it was so comforting during the pandemic. It and Bridgerton like practically got me. And rewatching The Nanny, I think that got me through the pandemic. Those 3 things.
Exactly. Yeah, there's just some things that and I think
I haven't watched season 3 yet because I've heard bad things, and I have it on this pedestal, and I've just had a hard time kind of being like,
it's tough. It's tough because I think what Ted Lasso does really well is small things. I think that it when it looks at just close relationships up close, so very personal kind of stuff that you can have a broader view on, I think it works better. Season 3 tried to do some like big social issue things, which I really appreciated what they did, like talking about revenge porn, talking about like coming out and stuff like that. And I think there were a lot of really good ideas. I'm not sure that it was as successful in those moments as it was in the really close moments. And that's kind of my biggest thing with season 3 is
I'll watch it
Yeah.
eventually. I'll watch
Yeah.
it.
I
Maybe
mean,
this strike keeps going on. I'll finally have time. I don't
yeah,
know. After
exactly.
Christmas,
There you go.
but I'm really curious and excited to talk to you about new project that you're starting. You
Yeah.
just recently posted this introduction to the Dos Ex Cinema, Finding God in the Movies, and you talk about your experience and that you're that I like the fact that you talk about not only is your goal to try to talk about Christian cinema, but that you want to find the spirituality in all films. And he says, you say
Hmm.
here, because I believe that all are made in God's image and that God is creative, I think that God can be found in all art, even if it's just the mere act of creating it.
Hmm.
Why don't you explain a little bit more what you're trying to say there?
Yeah, I think that goes back to like why I tend toward positive things, is I do
Mm-hmm.
think I just think there is something sacred in the act of creating anything.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that pretty deeply in me.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's just something sacred in that. And so for me, yeah, anytime I'm watching something, and granted, some movies work better in this than others. So, I'm not sure that I can
Yeah.
find a whole lot of God in like Cocaine Bear, but you know, but even there, I'm like, maybe, I don't
That'd be
know.
your challenge. Right.
But like, yeah, just generally speaking,
Yeah.
there was so long, I grew up in a fairly fundamentalist kind of background. And so there is this part of me that just had this very strong divide between there's the secular stuff and there's the
Yeah.
Christian stuff, and or the spiritual stuff or whatever. And I've bought into that for a long time. I threw away all my Stephen King books, and like, yeah, there was just a time where that was like
Yeah.
what I believed. And yeah, at some point I really decided that I really wanted to kind of like focus on what are people trying to say, because I think if we're listening to what anybody has to say, I think we're gonna hear something of the divine, of
Mm-hmm.
God, of whatever word you want to put to it. And so yeah, a few weeks
Yeah.
ago, our pastor was talking and he said, we'd like to start some new small groups. And somebody talked about, I had written a piece about the film Jesus Revolution,
Mm.
which is a spectacularly done film. It's
Yeah, I heard good things. I
beautifully
haven't.
filmed. Yeah,
It's the Irwin brothers, right?
yeah,
They're
yeah,
and
exactly. And I think they're
they're.
talented.
I
Yeah,
agree. They are way better than the
like
other
the
than
Kendricks. Yeah,
yeah than the competition.
yeah.
Their films, while flawed, are almost always like satisfying and
Hmm.
engaging. And I think I've given fresh to almost every single one of their
Yeah,
movies.
I think they're all, I mean, and I'm the same. I feel like they're really good filmmakers. I
Hmm.
had some issues with some of the other things about it, uh,
Sure.
but some people had talked about, oh, we were going to get together and we were going to watch this in like our Sunday school class or whatever. They were going to watch the movie, and they took the piece that I had
Hmm.
written about it and kind of like discussed that with while watching the movie. And she was like, oh, I think, one of the women at this meeting said, oh, I think it would be really neat to be able to do more,
Yeah.
discussion about film, with like in the context of, yeah, like whether it's a Christian film or not, but to be able to talk about it like with a kind of like Christian
Hmm.
worldview or whatever. And I thought, oh, I would love
Yeah.
to do that because I
That's great.
tend to do that kind of anyway, just for my own self. Like I'm always looking, what is the deeper meaning in this for me? What am I trying to get out of it? And
Hmm.
so, yeah, like I was saying earlier, I do like to kind of look at horror movies. We're not going to start with a horror movie, even though I really want to. But like it's
Well, some
October.
horror is
But yeah,
overtly religious, like
yeah,
you mentioned, The Omen,
exactly.
obviously. But
Yeah,
obviously, anything involving exorcism is gonna, be
right,
religious. But even the ones not so um, obviously tied
right. But
to
I do
it.
think, Yeah, but I just so we decided, and I'm sitting there trying to think. I'm like, oh, what can we call this class? And I was like, ooh, Deus Ex Cinema, yay! So
Mhm. Nice.
so we're gonna go for that. But yeah, and that so yeah, people are welcome to like join in. My intention is to do it locally with, within my own church congregation, but to kind of say these are going to be the films that we're going to be watching if you want to watch, and then post some discussion questions and hopefully, get
Mhm.
folks kind of involved in that way. So I think that could be kind of
Yeah,
interesting. I don't
I
know.
think
I
it's
hope anyway.
great. I think it's a great idea. I have a similar kind of life experience as far as, being very fundamentalist, I guess, growing up, and then slowly over time realizing that I didn't have to agree with every single thing of my religion, and
Mhm.
that I could be that God was okay with that. That
Right.
and that was an interesting journey, and part of that I think was becoming more open to art and artistic expression, and the actual one of the key movies for me is with that was actually Slumdog Millionaire. It's really
Yeah.
random, but I mean, it kind of makes sense in a way because it's basically big romance, and I love
Hmm.
romances, and
Right.
at that point I had said, oh well, I don't watch R-rated movies pretty much. There are a few that I had watched, but not many up
Hmm.
until that point. And it's all because our the leaders of our church had given advice to the youth to not watch R-rated R movies.
Right.
But they're not really supposed to be watching them really anyway. I mean, that's the whole
Right.
point of the designation. And so I saw this movie and I was like, this is a really wonderful film.
Mhm.
I loved Slumdog Millionaire, and I still love it. And it kind of just made me open my eyes to be like, the only reason this is a mature film, but
Mhm.
it's not offensive, it's not gratuitous, it's not, and so it made me, okay, maybe I need to open up, meaning to expand, and so that was actually a pretty important movie for me, and now I pretty much will review most anything, like not at NC-17
Right.
for the most, I can't imagine. um I mean, but for the most part, I'm pretty open these days. I wouldn't want to watch any like torture porn or things like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
pretty open, and it's served me well. It's been
Hmm.
great, and getting to understand different people's perspectives and where they come from. And you watch a movie like Moonlight, and you're able to walk in the shoes of a character who I'm never going to meet, probably someone like Sharon in that movie, just
Right.
because of where I live, and who, and so getting to go to watch a film like that, it is really can be life changing.
Yeah, for sure. And that's it. And I also, that's one of the things that I also like to do is to try to find movies that are, written and directed by somebody other than
Hmm.
necessarily the big,
Yeah.
whoever white guy, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And
Things.
it's not even a matter of not enjoying their films. Like I am looking forward to seeing, the new Scorsese when it comes out. I usually like
Right.
most of
Right.
what Christopher Nolan does. Like generally speaking, it's not really a I don't like those. It's just when that's all that it is, I think about how much art that we might have lost in the past because women didn't have a way to have it done at all. When I was in
Right.
college studying music, my professor did a lot, like my piano like teacher was there, and she was really interested in female composers, and so much of what I worked on was contemporary music because there's not much from the past by women. They just weren't allowed, and it's not that women didn't create music back then or didn't create art or didn't write books or whatever. There were just so few outlets for them to do that, that there's
Hmm.
a part of me that's like, no, I like all these old white guys too, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I also enjoy seeing
Get.
something by, here's a black creator, here's a queer creator, here's a
Yeah.
woman creator, and I want to
Different
see,
perspectives.
yeah, different
Hmm.
things. I want to see that. I don't want to have to always find my way through this one perspective. I want to
Hmm.
see how can I find myself in this way as well? Where can I
Yeah.
see myself in this? How do I find that common ground in something that isn't like me at all, but we still have experiences? I think that's last year I raved for a full year about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Is one of my favorite movies ever.
Mm.
And I mean, I would put it, and that's hard for me to do, to say favorites, because I'm not good at that. I like a lot of things. So
Yeah.
so favorite is not a word I throw around very very often. Well, I might throw it around often without meaning. Maybe
Mhm.
that's the better way to say it. But I will say that for real, that is probably one of my all-time favorite movies, because it's just at its heart, it's about, here's a mom trying to figure out, how do I take care of my kid? What's going on with my relationship, my long-term relationship with this person I've been married to, with all these things that I didn't get to do in my life that I wanted to because whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, I feel that. I don't have to be an, Chinese immigrant to have that. Like, I have
Yeah.
that experience without having a whole lot in common with Evelyn, but I have a lot in common with Evelyn. And
Mhm.
it's neat to me
The
to be able to
humanity of
see,
it.
yeah, exactly, to be able to see that. So finding different directors and writers and stuff like that is just of interest to me in some parts, just because I feel like, what am I missing out if I'm only watching the perspective of, yeah, a 40-year-old white guy?
Mm.
Yeah, that's great. What else is there? What else can
Right.
you tell
Yeah.
me? So,
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I didn't love it just because I did feel like it was a little try hard. Like when it's
uh,
going to like the rocks and the okay, I'm like I just felt like it was sort of quirkiness for quirkiness sake at a certain
eh,
point.
I could see
But
that.
I recommended it. I enjoyed it. I just
Right.
wasn't quite as enthusiastic as
Oh no,
but
I was gone
the
for that
small
movie.
there were a couple of small movies that I loved last year. I loved RR. I mean,
Oh
it's
yeah, it
not
was
small, but
phenomenal. Yeah.
I loved that. I loved RR. I loved a little movie called Hit the Road.
Ooh, I haven't
Um,
seen that one.
yeah, it's really good. It's
Nice.
by Panapanahi, and he is
Okay.
the son of his father. I forget his first name, but Panahi is his last name, who's also an Iranian filmmaker. This was his
Mm-hmm.
debut, and it was just such a really wonderful movie because it's about this family that is trying to escape Iran, and
Okay.
it and the movie doesn't really tell you. You have to figure out all these clues all along the way, like what's going, because they don't even give the characters names. There's mother, father, younger brother, older brother, and
Right on.
they're trying to they're smuggling, trying to get older brother out of the country.
Right, right.
But I think it's just what it does so well is that it has all of that like heft of this serious tense situation, but it's also got all of like anybody who's been on a road trip with their family can relate, and little brother is the most adorable uh kid. And so it's great. I think it's on Canopy. I don't know if you
Oh
have
yeah,
it.
I love
Yeah,
Canopy. Yeah,
so you should
totally.
check it. It's really good. And then
Excellent.
I also loved Marcel Lachelle with
Oh
Shakespeare.
yeah, no, it was spectacular. I
It was
loved
so
Marcel.
good.
So good.
It
So
just it was
yeah.
like so clever and so sweet and so funny, and I just everything
And it
about it I
had this
loved.
really gorgeous message about like
Yes.
community and family and found family, and like,
Hmm.
what is community really? And I think it's really interesting at a time where so much is found online, and
Hmm.
with I just thought it was such an interesting and unique way
Yeah.
to have some like pretty big concepts in
Yeah.
it, while also just being sweet as heck.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
precious.
But
So yeah.
my favorite movie of last year is maybe a random, but I absolutely loved Puss in Boots: The Last Wish.
Oh, it was gorgeous.
The well, and part of it was just the experience of watching it because I was pretty disappointed by a lot of the Oscar contenders last year. There were a bunch that just were not for me. And I was just going through screeners and just, I'm just not enjoying these. I didn't like, and then put on this, I had a screener link for Puss in Boots Last Wish. And I was like, oh, this is going to be another DreamWorks cash grab, because they had a terrible 2021 DreamWorks. And so I was like, and I put it on, and just, what? Oh my gosh. And it really I really admire them, because they could have so easily phoned that movie in.
Oh,
They could
yeah.
have just easily made a sequel that that would have been like fine, that nobody would have, but the fact that they pushed themselves artistically to do something truly special and create some of the most unbelievable animated sequences I've ever seen. And to have 3 layers of villains, which I all liked, and which were all interesting. And I mean, it's just, I just, I just absolutely was blown away. And it was such like a life affirming experience to be like, oh my gosh, some people try harder than they need to in life. Like, yay.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
It was gorgeous. I loved
special.
it. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sitting here as we're, closing in on the end, and I'm starting to, this year, I mean, not really, but a little bit. Oh, gosh. And I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about movies from this year, and I don't know, one of the front runners for me is Past Lives, because oh my goodness, it was so simple and so beautiful. And just, again, like, I love rom-coms, but there is something about just a solid, just romantic movie, which this one so deeply is. And I'm really, I will be excited for it. Like, at award season, I hope it does well.
This year's been like the year of the bittersweet romance, like especially at the festivals. And Past Lives is very good, but it was stressful for me to watch.
Oh, okay.
When I was watching, I'm just like, because I really liked her husband. I thought he was so
Oh,
great.
yeah, for
And
sure.
so I think watching it a second time, I might actually enjoy it more now, knowing how it's going to end. Because I was just like, please don't cheat on your husband. He's so nice. Please don't.
No, that's fair. I thought it was so beautiful, and I don't know, it had just intense, Casablanca movies, Casablanca vibes for me. I was comparison. Like, oh yeah, because there's that same kind of thing of, you're with this person, but here's this other person. I loved it. I thought it was gorgeous.
It's a good one. I mean, just as far as my favorite, like I said, Red, White, and Royal Blue is my favorite movie of the year. I absolutely just loved it. I thought it was just so well directed and so just made, I love the book too, but they just made all the right choices of just little moments, and it was such good chemistry. I loved it. But the other movie that I've given a 10 out of 10 that I really had no flaws, like Red, White, and Royal Blue, it's more about the overall experience. I certainly could find flaws in that film, but the overall experience was so satisfying to me. But a movie that I really, I came home from it and I was just like, I have nothing. I have no critiques. And it was, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret.
Oh my God, it was so perfect. I was so stressed about that movie because I was like, oh my heavens, this book is like transformational. How do you I mean, it shouldn't
Yeah.
be hard, but I've seen so many terrible adaptations of books that I
Books,
just
yeah. Well,
loved.
and it is crazy that so few of her books, if any, have been adapted
Yeah,
to films
it's
because they're so
wild. Yeah,
iconic.
I can't think of any
Yeah.
of that. I mean,
I don't think so off the top of my head, but
yeah, nothing.
not
Yeah,
many.
nothing comes to mind. But goodness, that was a phenom. Every performance was so good in it. Like
Oh,
all of them. Like, yeah, that's exactly how I pictured Nancy.
you
Like
should, yeah, you
forever
should do
ago.
this for your project, for your religion
Ooh, that's a
project.
good
That would
one.
be an
Yeah.
interesting one. Because just everything. I am very, very, very cynical when it comes to a lot of movies for teens,
Mm-hmm.
because I just cannot stand the whole like sullen, miserable um teen protagonist character. I
That's
like
fair.
even ones that I know like technically are well done, like well-made
Right.
movies. They're just not something I enjoy. Like something like Edge of 17. I can understand that that's a well-made film. I did not enjoy it. Or
Right.
even a Lady Bird or something like that. I get it, but it's just not for me.
Right.
But in last year, The Whale, I absolutely can stand it. I mean, on a lot of levels, I hated that movie,
That's fair.
but the teen, I said the only way that movie makes sense is if it's a serial killer origin story, because that teen character was just unbelievable. Like nobody is that cruel all the time to
All the
people, and
time.
that like
Right.
I just needed like a moment of humanity. Like, come on.
Yeah, give me, yeah, no, I totally feel that.
It was
That's fair.
it was the worst. And so I it's a hard genre to sell me on, like coming
Hmm.
of age stories. But this one, she was so authentic. Sure, she had her sullen, moments, but
Yeah.
she also had sweet moments where she actually liked her mom and dad, and where she was authentic in herself. And I really loved also just all of her friends, that they had like weak catty moments, but they weren't like unreasonable mean girls. Like they felt like characters that, okay,
Right.
this is how kids are. It just captured
Yeah.
childhood so well.
No, it was like I said, I went in, I won't say with low expectations, but
Uh-huh.
they were pretty low. Like I was really
Yeah.
excited about it. I was super excited because I was like, oh my gosh, this book was just everything. And I was shocked at how much of it I remembered. And then, yeah, just to sit there and watch it, and I was like, oh my goodness, it's really it's so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they just did such a good job with it. I'm remain
Mhm.
impressed with that. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. Yeah.
Well, do you have any? I always like to talk about unpopular opinions. Do you have anything this year that you either liked more than most people seem to, or that you didn't like that everybody's raving about?
Oh gosh. Let me think here. Um, I'm I was not super, I thought that I would like, I keep I guess maybe it's not an unpopular opinion exactly, but I wanted to like uh Knock at the Cabin
Hmm.
so much more than I did. And I
Okay.
just was so, I keep, come on, M Night, give it to us, good. And it just wasn't again. Yeah, there was something about it, and I felt like it hit all of the things that I thought I would like about a movie. And it just, I don't know, it felt,
Yeah,
something just fell really flat to me.
it
And
felt.
I think that's a movie that I think most of his movies probably come right in that like love it or hate it.
Yeah,
And this
my
one, I
problem.
didn't even hate it. And that I
Yeah,
my problem, like where I felt just meh about it was like, how was this not good?
my problem with the movie is I felt like it was an allegory without any message. Like, what was it trying to say?
Right.
Like,
What's it saying? Yeah.
you can't have a movie with end of the world and with those kinds of religious themes and things, where long sections of characters just like talking about deeper, the deeper things in life. You can't without trying to say, it's not just at that point, it goes out of like dumb horror kind of a movie. It's not just
Right.
a people in a cabin, kind of movie. It's trying to say something, but for the life of me, I have no idea, especially with the ending. What is it
Yeah,
trying to
it
say? I
just
have no
didn't
idea.
say anything. Yeah, exactly. I think that was the thing, is it just, I don't know, it just didn't,
Like we
I
have
don't
to
know.
sacrifice for each other, or
But
I have
maybe
no
not.
idea.
Yeah, I just constantly was sitting there and I was like, I don't know. It's just
It's
all, I don't, it was just a
yeah.
bummer to me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I really wanted to like it and just
Mhm.
had a tough time super
For
getting
me,
into it.
it was Bottoms has been the one that
Oh,
I just didn't get it.
I
I don't
just saw
know.
it and really enjoyed
I don't know. I just didn't get it. It just wasn't on my wavelength. I
Yeah.
felt like the big joke of the movie was girls punching each other is like inherently funny, but I don't find that funny. Like
Right, right, right.
I'm not like offended by it, but I don't find it funny. It doesn't make me laugh. And I think that I felt like, okay, they're really, really banking on the fact that people will find girls doing this Fight Club and
Mm,
girls doing this like inherently funny because they're
right,
girls.
right, right.
And that to me, I don't know. I just sat there and I'm like, what? I don't understand why people are laughing. Like it just, I don't know, just one of those movies that just was not connecting.
Yeah, I
Me.
think the big thing for me with that one, what I thought was funny about it was how it spoofed on so many, especially like 80s teen movie
Mm-hmm.
kind of things. Like the football players literally doing every single thing in their uniform was hilarious to me. Like
Mm-hmm.
that they never take off their uniform. That's funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's
Mm-hmm.
just, so it had these really kind of esoteric kind of things that to me were really
Uh-huh.
funny. I
I mean,
don't know. Like the
most
fight,
people,
the Fight Club
yeah.
part, I was kind of whatever on that, but I'll be honest, like the movie itself, I thought was really
Yeah, most people, I mean, seem to. For me, the one that I liked way more than most, it seemed like, was Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken.
I did not go see that one.
Yeah. I mean, it was only in theater for like 1 week,
It was there
but
no time. Yeah.
I mean, I had the director on for an interview.
Hmm.
To me, it did what a lot of these other movies, because it kept getting compared to Turning Red and all this stuff, but I thought it did what those movies were trying to do. But to me, it was more successful. I really
Hmm.
liked the mother character. I really liked Ruby as a character. I felt like her motivations made sense, and again, she wasn't just this sullen, miserable teen or
Right.
rebellious for rebellious sake. Like, I thought it was way better than the Turning Red, which the mother in that movie I just could not tolerate. She was
Yeah.
just too much for me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I really enjoyed it. I loved the animation. I thought the music was fun. I was
Nice.
kind of shocked that, not that some people wouldn't enjoy it, sure, of course, but how hard people were on it.
Mm,
How, I thought tough people were on it, but
mm,
I really enjoyed it. But
yeah.
but yeah, it's been an interesting summer, especially this summer, because like, I mean, you have
Yeah.
things like Barbie, which was so experimental and weird. You have Oppenheimer, which was, bold. Uh
Mm-hmm.
and then, these sort of packaged movies, these somewhat more safe movies, like your
Right.
Indiana Jones and your Mission Impossibles and your Fast 10 didn't do as well as they,
Yeah. Yeah. It was
it's kind of
interesting.
interesting.
And it
Yeah.
was also just in general, like speaking of bottoms, it was the summer of like raunchy
Raunchy.
girl movies, like
Yeah.
which
I like Joyride. That's the
I
one that I
loved
enjoyed.
Joyride.
Yeah.
Joyride was great, and I did not like No Hard Feelings at all.
Yeah. That
Like
one wasn't my
I was
favorite.
pretty down on that one, which again, I thought I would enjoy it because I really, really did enjoy Good Boys
Mm-hmm.
by the same director. And
Yeah.
I thought that one was really funny and had like this good heart. And I thought that, yeah, to me, it was funny because yeah, I think the two of them especially came out within a couple weeks of each other,
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and I'm thinking, oh gosh, yeah, if we're gonna do raunchy girl movies, I think girls should write them because Joyride was like
Yeah.
in
The thing,
every way, in every
yeah,
way that I felt like No Hard Feelings failed, I thought Joyride did exactly right. Like
yeah,
just
I agree.
every time I was like, oh, we're gonna have like full frontal nudity. I thought in No Hard Feelings it was gratuitous and stupid, and I thought
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
served the plot
right.
in Joyride is maybe a little bit of a stretch, but I mean, it sure did a whole
Yeah,
lot more than it did in No Hard Feelings, where I was like, this has no purpose. I'm
I
not
agree.
like this is just it's here for like shock and that's all. But like
Yeah.
it didn't
The
mean anything.
the problem with
And
No Hard Feelings is that if you're gonna have characters that are kind of that unlikable and that are behaving so implausibly, like
mhm,
nobody, like he would have no interest in this woman. Like the way that she pursues him, it
right.
just you would never be it. So everything is completely unbelievable, which can work, but it
Mhm.
has to be really funny if you're gonna have it. And it just wasn't. I admired Jennifer Lawrence for going for it. I mean,
Yeah, oh yeah.
but
She was fun, but
yeah, but it just there was no way that this guy was going to be interested in her. I mean, aside from the fact she's beautiful, but the way that she
right.
behaved, it would be a total turnoff. And so I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, I
and then
agree. The
also
script
it
was
just
just
like
not great.
it just glossed over. It's like, oh, now they're friends. And like
Yeah,
I
it didn't
felt
make any
like it
sense.
could
Like,
have it's
why
like
would he
they
even
did
want to go
this,
on a date with her? Like, it
yeah,
didn't
they
even
did
make any
this one
sense.
montage date and now they're friends, but like you didn't earn any of the
Yeah,
like heart that you wanted to have at the end. I felt like, no, you didn't
yeah,
do enough to get me to that point. Whereas in Joyride, when it
hmm,
came to this really emotional gut punch kind of part, I'm like, that is I
yeah,
buy. Yeah, these are not the same people. I don't know that this is a friendship that's going to last forever, but okay,
yeah.
you at least by the time you got to the end, I'm like, yeah, no, you have deserved my tears
Yeah.
for this scene. They did not get them in
Yeah,
No
he's
Hard
literally
Feelings.
pepper spraying her for attacking, her and
Yeah,
attacking him. And 5 seconds later, 30 seconds later, in the same conversation that he's just
right.
pepper sprayed her, he's like, "Oh, let's go on a date." It just didn't make any
No,
sense.
nope,
Yeah,
didn't
I
work.
agree.
Bad.
I agree on that one. Yeah, it was definitely the summer for raunchy comedies. But
Yeah.
Joyride was the winner. I
Oh,
hated Strays so much.
I did not even see
Don't
Strays.
see it. It
I had
was
no
very bad.
interest.
It's very
Every,
bad.
yeah, every part of it, I was like, nope, this just looks like all the shock value, none of the what I want.
Yeah.
Nothing in the trailers gave me any interest at all.
Yeah.
So
It was very, very, very bad. But yeah, it's been an
it has
interesting
its,
year. Hmm.
and I was thinking, and a lot of people, it's funny because I'm kind of like tossing a essay around in my head just about there's a lot of what should studios learn from, Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know what they should learn because prior to Barbenheimer, the biggest movie financially of the year was Super Mario Brothers, which is this really corporate, really safe. I mean, it's fun. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it, but there's nothing about it. There's
Yeah, it's
no
true.
like deep story. It's fine, but there was nothing at all interesting about that movie. Like
Yeah.
it was all IP and that's it. And
It's true.
so I'm like, I don't know what you can get from these two movies because the one that was held up before it was
That's true. It's a
not
good
like these
point.
in any way. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know, maybe sometimes just things hit. It's just, I don't know, a little
It
bit
is a
of,
bit of a crapshoot. I mean,
yeah,
it's hard to
exactly.
know. I mean, I think a lot of it has to go down to Illumination and their incredible movie. They're incredible. The way that their company is run and
Hmm.
organized is absolutely amazing. Their movies
Right,
aren't
right.
amazing,
Right.
but the way that they make things for such a low cost, they
Hmm.
almost guarantee that they're going to make buckets and buckets of money, because even their ones that were less successful, like Secret Life of Pets Chew, even like things like that, they make them for such a low cost that they are going to compare, especially compared to Pixar, they are going to make tons of money no matter what. And it's just amazing, an amazing company to watch as far as a business. But yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. It's a tricky thing.
It is. I don't know.
I mean, we talked a lot about Joyride, and that just did nothing. And it was so weird because they literally had, I think, 5 screenings, free screenings here in Utah. Like, I don't think that this is, there's not that many people that are going to want to see a hard rated R comedy.
Right.
And so by the time it came out, I think a lot of the main audience had already seen it.
Right.
You know? So
yeah, I don't know. Like here in West
strategy.
Virginia, it was here maybe like where I am in, so I'm in a college town. I'm in Morgantown, which is where WVU is.
Right.
And I mean, even here, it was here for maybe a week, maybe 2. In and out real quick. And yeah, there is just a certain amount of, I don't know. It's interesting to me. I don't know. I'm always fascinated by why movies hit and other ones don't. And
me too.
Like trying to sort that out. But I don't know. This year feels like a year where that feels impossible to do.
You live in Morgantown. I grew up in Maryland, actually, believe it or not. Yeah. And we does it still have the reputation as the biggest party school on the East Coast? It used to.
I don't know. West Virginia University is in a little bit of a difficult time right now.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, they're having some major issues right now.
That was the case. We used to, oh, you're going to WVU. Ah.
I mean, I think it still has a little bit of a party school reputation, but I think after all of the many couch burnings and they cracked down on that, it's maybe a little less of that now.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, it would have been 20 years
in the
ago.
90s. It would have been
that's when I
now not as much.
Yeah, I was in college, and I started college in 98. So yeah, that would have
like right around then. Yeah, like
oh, sure, you're going to college.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a fair representation of the school. Now I will say it's probably not entirely wrong.
Okay. That's funny. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking. This was a blast. I had a great time talking with you, and definitely I'll keep me posted on everything that you're doing with this project, because I think it feels right up my alley, something I'd be interested in. So yeah,
definitely. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it, Rachel.
Yeah, if people want to follow you on social media, your various blogs, how do they do that?
Probably Instagram's probably the best place to find me. I quit Twitter because I couldn't do it anymore. But yeah, if you go on Instagram, which is the best place to find me, I'm just Alise Chaffins, all one word, and that'll be me.
Okay, so, I will put that in the description. Y'all should check it out. It's a lot of fun. And thanks again. It was great to meet you.
You too. Have a great evening.
And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure that if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That really helps me a lot. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And to make sure to check out over our Hallmarkies podcast. We're going to be starting Christmas before you know it. It's happening. So please take a look at that. And also the Patreon group and merch store. Check that out. And thanks so much. We'll talk to y'all later.